Hello, so this is part 2 of assignment 2 podcast. So we will try to cover it swiftly. So what we want to do is to escape pedagogies whereby the teacher holds the understanding of how the text should be read and what text should be read, and is in control, and here with the ruler or whatever he's holding in his hand, and here just with a smile. But the function of policing is the same. We cannot see in what way students are actually expressing their agency, and also we don't see how students actually impact on the flow of this class and on the outcomes and how they engage with the learning outcomes. Are they being policed, or they actually have an opportunity to critically and creatively engage in learning outcomes? We will learn what that means as we go through the podcast. So this is a model that I designed and published somewhere, and here it is. So here we have a student in the center, right? We have a student in the center. This is this round thing in the center, student or teams. And then they look at this. Look at this. They have different texts here on the left, more than one, which is interesting, right? We don't actually produce a text. So here to the right, you see those students or teams, they will produce a text. Now, none of us produces a text on the basis of having read one text, right? That would be not only uninformed, but impossible. You cannot speak unless you heard more than one word. So the same with producing a text, producing something, an artifact you have, right? So students here engage in exploratory activities. Those texts here come from the community, right? So the community created those texts. I think those arrows should be going the same way as in here, but they aren't, so that's okay. But so the texts come from the community. Students explore them in order to create a new text for the community. So from the community to the community. It's as simple as this, through an exploration and analysis. That's the model. So let me repeat again. From the community, the texts come, students explore those texts, analyze them, and on the basis of them, they generate something that in their view enables them to interact with the community. They generate a new text and it goes to the community. So practically that's the model. So we might just write it. So it is from the community. So exploration and analysis for the community, right? And we might say this is how we all act daily. We've learned our language from the community. We explored and analyzed our experiences, right? Since birth, our experiences with interactions with the community, including the language, and now we actually interact with the community, as I am, for example, in here. So I received the language from the community, and now I'm giving it to you. So it's a natural model. Now, how we will design now students' learning experiences, it doesn't really matter, in a sense that provided we don't violate that rule, it's from the community, then it's explored and analyzed, and for the community, provided we don't violate this process, I will be happy in any way you will design your 5 lessons. So this is the contract, right? It's really important to have this process intact. So we want this. And from now on, the ways in which I will talk to you about designing students' learning experiences, the simplest way, as they're still complex, but they're the simplest ways I could come up with using the reverse Bloom's model of learning. So I will be drawing on that model and on our assignment 1, but ultimately what I would like to achieve is a situation whereby I am able as a teacher educator to show you how you can put students in a situation whereby they gain things from the community, analyze what they gain, and then give back to the community. So I suggest that in order to have this interaction between community and the school going, we need to have 2 stages in the project, in a project-based approach. We need to have an engagement phase and also project development phase. So so I will just explain to you why I'm saying this. Remember that some of you might have actually engaged with the module 3, and in module 3 we were discussing the teaching plan by Kathy Mills, and Kathy Mills came into the classroom, or the teacher in the project where Kathy Mills was a researcher, and basically the teacher decided that today we will do clay motion movie, and this is how you do it, and this is what you need to do, and now you are ready to do this, right? So it was very directive, and students didn't know why clay motion movie, and in relation to, what choices were made from what. So it is very important for us as teachers of literacy to make sure that our students can tell the difference between the relevance of some literacy tools as opposed to others. So if they want, as in here, to give something back to the community, right, in the engagement phase for create, then they need to have access to some resources enabling them to identify the needs of the community and the possibilities. So what I will expect from you here in the engagement phase, if you could actually, in your description of the teaching plans, that you could actually identify the resources. They could be also persons, and they could be the community archives, community resources. So I would expect that you will identify resources that would enable students to identify the needs of the community and the possibilities. Yes, it would be fantastic to. So let me just. So it would be fantastic to, meet people in the aged care center and do something interesting for them. But what? And if we leave a decision with the teacher, and the teacher will say, well, it'd be great to do a clay motion movie for them. And for some students, it will be obvious that the idea is cool. And maybe for all students, the idea would be cool. But what were other options? And in a sense, maybe it doesn't matter, but to me it does matter. But because I would like students to feel engaged in the decision process, but also as they are engaged in the decision process, they're learning to differentiate. Everything in life is about discrimination. It's all about differentiation, discerning. You need to discern. This is better than this. This does this, this does that. So in the stage of evaluation, what would be important is to present students with, for you to identify in the teaching plan, the kinds of resources that you would have at hand, enabling students to identify the community needs and also the possibilities through which some of those needs could be met. So yes, we could create a clay motion movie. Look at this. We could create a poetry night. Look at this. We could create audiobooks for them. Look at this. right? So this is very interesting, and the students can then in the analysis phase, what they can do is analyze what makes clay motion movie cool. What does it take to make one? You could have a discussion, right? A lot of things is happening here, and they learn about the literacy tools, needed to create clay motion movie, as well as they are learning about clay motion movie as a tool, as a resource for making a difference, as a tool for doing something for people as opposed to doing something else. So this is where the teaching plan specifies those resources, enabling students to identify the needs and possibilities. This is where I expect in your teaching plans to see how you will assist students to explore those resources, to find out about the community needs and also about the possibilities through which we can address those needs. Now in the application phase, students, yeah, I wrote here plan, but maybe what we will have here is compare what they knew or thought and what they have learned. Here we might have them plan, and here we will have them summarize. I have questions for you written up that will help you to actually go through those stages. But it seems pretty nice now, so that you, as a teacher, if you were to engage students in a project-based learning, you can see that you will have to do some work here and then identify resources, identify learning outcomes as a result of it, identify support that you will provide students with, help students also with learning how much they have learned, help students plan, and help students in stating what they plan to do. And let me follow with this engagement phase now, and we will do the project development next. So I call it the engagement phase. So you have here a few points written up in order to help you thinking about how to actually embark on designing a unit of work or a set of learning experiences that are together integrated as both, leading to the project and as project. So this and this. Now I just inserted this picture here. That's from my book chapter with Amy Norman, and this is this from the community to the community. And we have come up with, I mean, there are many different ways in which you can engage students. So you can have puzzles. And puzzles are like this. So so you could have it on a smart board in a PowerPoint, and if students click underneath any of these, as I explained before, different activities can be created that will actually tell students about the community and inspire in them a particular form of engagement. So this one here, the aim was to build positive relationships, but this is too general. I suggest that as you design your engagement stages, and let's say, for example, puzzle like this, and you will have things underneath all these icons, some more activities illustrating the needs of the community. I suggest you have a project already in mind. So for example, here the project could be our class, right? So you could actually have activities underneath these things showing to students how children from different communities, Aboriginal community, maybe from some other country, maybe maybe even, I don't know, whatever, how children from different countries introduce themselves, speak on themselves, maybe create particular things whereby classrooms or classes can actually be visible as a group. So maybe they have a class wall with pictures and descriptions, maybe they have websites, we spoke about it, right? So something to give your students idea that as a group they could actually benefit from having a presence on the school wall or on the website, or have a book about themselves, something like that. So you do read these two things, that they're very useful. Then that's the puzzle idea. Then you can have guests introducing their community and its needs. So we were talking, it could be indigenous people, that you might engage through your school principal and the community officer. They could be aged care centers, could be hospitals, could be sport clubs. In different cities in Australia, we have different community forums or fora. Fora is the Latin plural. Forums is Englishized now, plural to the word forum. So I participated quite actively in community meetings in Canberra, where they had this multicultural forum. So we had people from different countries, migrants who already lived in Australia for like 60, 70 years, old people, young people, everybody, and I was quite active there. I also was active in different health associations or NGOs, because I could contribute there a little bit. So there are people around, and the idea is to meet up and see how the school could be a bridge between the children and the community rather than an isolated place. Illustrate a project, right? You could also illustrate a project that needs completion. Maybe something is done or half done. Maybe you have done something halfway. What could it be? You could have, I have this thing here, but so I have this thing created by one of our ex-students as well, the lion and the mouse, and you can see that if you clicked on this microphone here, then the children would have been reading the story. But you could have created, maybe, you see, like there's an icon here. I can't, through this particular system, actually make those recordings actually be heard, because this function no longer exists, or maybe never existed on this site. But you can see this is a project half done. Well, this one is finished, but you could actually give, how children were, you see how they were recording each other? So you could actually create a PowerPoint like this, and children could actually read it out, have fun with it and post it somewhere as an audiobook. Another thing you could have done is, remember the poetry thing I created for you? So maybe the poetry thing, so the text is written, they could read it out, yes, like in here, but they could also draw pictures that actually, or find pictures on Google, or draw pictures there to actually reflect the spirit of the poem. So that's another thing. So half-done projects are very good for children to actually complete and say that they were already, I don't know, maybe you can come up with reason, but that's sort of things people can do. I created once a website for, it was Ni Hao High, but I would really love to know how to actually, how it works. So anyway, so that was the website for, I know what it is, that's that's a video. So welcome to my site. I don't know, I think I made up these words or got them from Google Translate or something. But you can see that you can actually create students' website with students' projects in it or about students, right? So this is about students. I'm just trying to see whether I think I might have actually given you this recording among your resources. I will double check. But yes, developing websites, class websites is excellent. So you can use it as a trigger for activities. So what resources you will use and how you will support students analysis is already inside of module 4 among listed there in the form of YouTube podcasts and PowerPoints where I teach you how to analyze and how to work with resources and so on. So, and we might actually, if there are some questions, we may discuss it in the collaborate. I just don't want to mix too many videos on too many issues. So, so that's one way to actually engage students. We have here also some text about how to help students summarize their findings in the planning session, and so how to help students to summarize their findings from after they have analyzed the resources. And also we have some questions that help students to agree on the project. Now, obviously, when you work with little children, you will have to think of ways of how to adjust those questions to their level and how to integrate those questions in the class so it is appropriate for little children. Maybe you do it in a less explicit way, but this is the general direction that helps students to actually reflect and then decide on a project. Here are some notes on assessments. So you can actually assess both. You don't have to assess just the project. You can actually assess students on the engagement phase and then also on their own project once they completed it. And obviously your formative assessment should examine students' progress in relation to the learning outcomes that you have specified for this phase of engagement. And also you should examine the quality of your support. This is not to say that we are bad teachers or you're bad teachers or something, but sometimes the students' needs will require support that you might have not foreseen. So the formative assessment helps you to actually assess that. Now coming to the project stage, so now when students actually are undertaking their own project, so you have here some remarks. You will notice that in the assessment phase, what I'm saying is, yes, you can assess a group project, but if you wanted to assess also individuals, there are ways of assessing individuals. Now, we have in this class students from early childhood all the way to high school, so you can choose for yourselves and also maybe reflect for yourselves how you could actually assess individual students on a group project. So I have some ideas. So your students could produce a text, so individual students could produce a text about the project they created together as a group. So each student produces a text about the project. They can also explain orally. Individual students could explain orally their engagement in the project, so they learn to speak about it. They can present a review of their project. So there are ways of individualizing assessment, even though the assessment was group, but even though the project was a group project. So now the project engagement. So on the basis of some of our students' ideas, now I just settled on this project. Create an international recipe book to inspire readers' interest in cooking. So again here I used the reverse model of Bloom's, and we have here students working in groups. Students are working on an international recipe book to inspire readers' interest. And you can see here, this is the stage that was also missing in Kathy Moore's learning plan, because when students were deciding on the project, they were comparing, as say, for example, a book helpful to inspire readers' interest in cooking as opposed to something else. Now they're actually exploring different types of books, maybe cooking books or maybe other books that are also inspirational, but some kinds of books for their inspirational qualities. So again, we are not teaching them how to create an inspirational book, because none of us would know. But what we are doing, you as teachers, you are your students' collaborators, because you have to scratch your head quite deeply and think, what resources can I bring in, materials and maybe guest speakers and whoever, to actually enrich students' perspectives on what makes a book inspirational, what could make a cooking book inspirational for readers, or enabling them to, inspiring them to actually love reading cooking books. So you can see neither you know nor do I know the answer. And that's why I like this model, because here you are not in a rigmarole of being in a routine of doing same things each time. What you have here yourself as a teacher, you have a problem to solve. What resources will I bring in? Whom do I bring from the community for our students to not just create an international recipe book, but one that is actually to inspire readers' interest in cooking, right? So that's the idea. And students now are identifying those resources that you have created. And you have identified them in your teaching plans, right? What resources you will use, and here you will identify in the analysis stage, you will identify the reading support you will be using in order to enable students to identify the resources so that they can create an inspiring, so that they can create a book that can inspire readers' interest in cooking. So students here identify the relevant resources. Here they analyze them for their inspirational qualities. So again, reading strategies. And students apply their reasoning to complete the project. So students actually are doing the work. And individuals, groups, and the class share their learnings. So individuals in groups will be discussing what they have learned, and then the groups can present to the class so that the entire class can learn what every group about their projects and also what they learned as a result of the project. And then it's a very good thing what to do in the remember phase is to ask each group to comment on each other's projects. And if you cannot recall how students could analyze, remember we had those questions here, right, a little bit earlier. So the questions were here. So I'm just pointing them to you so you can actually see them. So the questions were here for you. So you can work with those questions in a way that is appropriate for your students, right? So these are the questions, and these questions could be good orienting questions, enabling your students to actually evaluate other students' work. You could probably use the same questions for individuals and groups to reflect on their own projects, and then apply the same questions in order to evaluate other groups' projects. And that's just it. So in summary, you could read for yourselves. I have actually contrasted our own exploratory and resource-based model that I have been teaching you in ELA 200 with the model that is advised by multiliteracies, and that I am saying it's not based on any understanding of how learning actually happens. It's an old model. So there, then I remind you once again about the process of construction and the kinds of building blocks of the process of construction that we have identified in the neuroscience section of Module 4. Now, something that often is not mentioned, but you actually should engage in some self-learning. So, I've got a mother who's quite old, and maybe your parents do the same, or grandparents. My mother does crosswords. She loves them. But what she does, she's got this book. She created this notebook for herself, and she's organized it alphabetically, and she puts the words that she learns as she does her crosswords. And she also developed a strategy that helps her to find those words, whereby she actually I don't know how she does it, because I'm not that engaged in it, but she also puts down the words that were leading or were cues somehow to those keywords that she had to find in the crossword. So that's what I'm saying is, if an 88-year-old person can do something like this, you could actually engage in YouTube. There's plenty of amazing lectures, and I have given you examples of some in ELA 200. But to finish on the crazy note, enmity, like for me, I mean, I never used this word, but I created I'm creating in different ways for myself PowerPoints where I actually collect either quotes from different YouTube lectures, or sometimes even words, because there are words, especially in Jordan Peterson's lectures, but there's no way I can remember them. They're so beyond my educator's vocabulary. Look at the second one: biological instantiation of morality in rats. I know what that means. Well, we can see that rats, research has shown that actually rats have morality already written in their genes. So they have this cooperation and playfulness values already inside of them, and if some rats don't obey by them, they will be probably one way or another ostracized. Yeah, so build your own mind and vocabulary, right? So learn, go there. I have students from Indonesia who are working with scholars in Indonesia, and it's been really a road uphill to introduce those teachers, those actual teacher educators, to YouTube as a resource of thought, ideas, and things from outside the box. Complicated things, wonderful things are out there. Build your own mind and vocabulary. So today, what I wanted to do is in these videos, what I wanted to do is to introduce you to some processes about designing learning experiences, and now we can have a discussion about integration of reading support strategies that I have actually outlined in your module 4 into those activities, so that you can actually design wonderful and inspiring lessons for assignment 2. Thank you so much.